And you are now live.
Thank you, Aisha.
Really nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. So welcome everyone to tonight's FBS Chat. And as you can see at the bottom, we have Rob Black with us. Really pleased. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Rob. And my wonderful co-host, Rachel Gillibrand, who we first met in Bath 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've been stalking ever since. I always start off with how our guests came across the approach in the first place, Rob, and what made you resonate and pursue it.
Okay, that's a really good question. So, wow, how did I come across Solution Focus? So we're talking like 1996. So that's showing my age now. So at that point, I was a residential social worker, and I was just about to go and train to be a childcare social worker. So I was working at this residential unit in Bath called 117. So it was a children's home, and then we had a new director of social services come in and basically was saying, I don't think residential social care works that well. So, and she muted this idea of bringing in almost like a family intervention service. So working with young people on the sort of edge of care and doing more preventative work. So as a residential team, we were given this option of either being redeployed or taking on this training. So I just thought, well, this sounds quite interesting. So this woman called Eileen Murphy came in, and it was weird because at that point I'd not done my social work training, so I wasn't aware of methodologies or therapy. I was just a caring professional, really. And then we started to learn about this thing called Solution Focused. And I have to say, the first sort of 8 weeks, I was quite cynical. I was like, what is this? This is nonsense, and I couldn't see at that point how asking the questions that Eileen was showing us would resonate with some of the more troubled young people I work with. So I was a bit reticent, but I stuck with it. And then, I don't know, 3 months in, I kind of thought I understood the concept. And we had a real benefit of when the intervention service opened. So Eileen saw the families originally, and we were just like a co-worker. So we'd sit in the session and watch her work. And as we became more competent, she would encourage us to ask questions. And I was just taken aback by how some of the most difficult families I'd known seemed to respond to the questions. So at that point, I thought that there's something in this for me. And it was weird. So at that point, I started doing my social work training. So I'm having all this doing my degree. But on the other side, I'm thinking, I think this is for me. So I then went off to Brief and did a 2-day course with Chris Iveson, which was, again, just inspirational. And it was interesting because Eileen's take on the model is quite different to Brief's, but both resonated. So I thought, well, there's definitely something in this. And then as I progressed, I mean, I was fortunate to be asked by Brief to come and they had a supervision group at the time. I think about 19.
Sorry, Rob, I've just got to quickly stop you. Look what Guy Shennan's written.
Well, it's kind of put me off my side here. Like, anyway, yeah. So Guy was my friend was working there, and I got invited to do. It was almost like a monthly supervision group. So I got to watch Chris, Guy, Harvey, Evan work, and be part of the reflective team. And that was my foundation, really. And from that point, I just thought, well, this is for me. It kind of fitted with the way I thought about how you help people. And I just then immersed myself in doing conferences and reading. And I've been very fortunate. So while I was at 117, and how I got into training was the local university, Bath University, used to run, well, they still do run a social work course, but they had a theory and methods module. And then one day, one of the presenters was pulled out and they'd heard about 117 doing this thing called Solution Focus. So they invited one of us up to come and speak about what we did, which turned out, so I took that kind of that job on and did a presentation and then was invited back for many years to talk about Solution Focus. So that kind of opened up my kind of training. avenue, really. So yeah, that's my background in terms of how I kind of came across solution focused, and I'm still here. God, how many years now? So that was 96. I don't know. I can't do the maths. I'm not very good at math.
24? Is it? No, have I got that wrong? Probably right.
No,
but yeah. Here we go.
So originally, I have to thank Chris Iveson and Eileen Murphy. I mean, they're the two people. I call them my solution-focused parents. They kind of nurtured me into wanting to work in this way, and I've never looked back, really. But I'm still learning. I mean, that is the great thing about this approach. You got it, but there's so many things that you can expand on and get better at. And so until I find something that is more effective, I think that's me, really. So I'm an enthusiast. That's what I call myself, an enthusiast.
And I think me and Aisha can, not so much, I think more Aisha than me, but there was that when we first learnt the approach through Brief, Harvey came down to our office, did 2 days training, and it was like, can this really work?
Be honest.
It seems, no, you did. I
hate
actually, I can see there's legs in this, but yeah, Aisha was a bit more, I think, like you were saying.
I was playing Candy Crush.
Could I just ask this? But were you training other approaches prior to that, though?
No, it was just, I think we were so institutionalized working in an education system.
Right.
If I don't need to know the history, then how can I best support?
Right.
And I was far more directive.
Okay.
And it wasn't about letting go of that. It's not about that sort of control, but that's the only way I knew, to be honest. So I kind of hated it. And then when I met Elliot, I just went, oh, got it. The penny dropped.
Right.
I had that light bulb moment. Went,
yeah. And for me, it took 3 months of that light bulb to kind of ignite, you know.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I was very privileged because Eileen, she's not very prolific in the community, but she is inspirational. And to see her work, I mean, at that first session I saw her, I mean, she asked the miracle question, and this family went, my jaw just dropped. I thought, bloody hell. They didn't laugh, or they actually started to think. So that was the light bulb moment that she said, for me. It was like, well, there's probably something in this. And then I thought I just need to kind of find out more. And it took a while. I mean, I was, first 2 years pretty awful, I think. If you looked at some of my first sessions, I was but I've just wanted to get and that's for me personally, I just see myself as a practitioner, and that's my passion. I just love working with people and doing the best I can, and that's been my journey. I'm not any great academic. I mean, I've written a few things, and I can teach the basics of the approach, but my passion is just about working with people. Yeah, and just the language. I mean, I had a session. I mean, last. Can I share this with you? Is that okay?
Yeah, go.
So I've been working with this young man at the university on and off for a few years, and he's quite a complex character, but we've got a good connection, and I think that's vital. And so as it started work again, second session last week. So I said, okay, I can't say his name, but so what's been better since we last met? And his opening gambit, which was poetic, he said, I've lost my enthusiasm for worrying.
Oh,
wow!
Oh,
brilliant!
And I was like, wow. But it's moments like that still excite me. I mean, you couldn't script that. You can't script that, and it's just asking that question. I just, and that's what keeps me motivated and generated. It's just a privilege, to be honest. I just love it. Love it. Sorry, I'm just sharing that.
No, it's beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
And has it kind of, permeated into other areas of your life? Because what I find now is that I'm not just solution focused in the room, but that in my life, my friends, my relationships, I'm using the language.
Yeah, I guess. And again, you make a good point there, Rachel. I think it's just not about learning techniques. It has to be a mindset, and it's a vocation. And I think that's when I really got immersed in this. And that's what I love about our community is people are so welcoming and embracing, and and that's what I've really enjoyed. So I've met so many inspirational people like Guy, like Chris, like Jeff, Arnold Hubbers, Ben Furman, who have been so receptive and welcoming to share their ideas. I've never felt that apart from when I was a musician. I mean, that's what I really like about what we do. Does that make sense? I mean, there's a guy called I don't know, Rodney Mullen. Have you heard of Rodney Mullen? A great skateboarder. I mean, I'm a skateboarder, and he does some fantastic TED Talks, and he talks about this notion of an open source community. And I think it's such a correlation with SF, because we are an open source community, so we all give and we all take. And I think that's what over the last 24 years I've celebrated with so many people around the world, you know. And I think that makes us different. You know, we are open to kind of share and take ideas. I think that's a key component of the approach, really.
Yeah.
So I'm going off track there, but talking about skateboarding, but I don't skateboarding.
And I think for me, even though I was more sold on it than Aisha, when I first started to see families, I kind of dip in and out. There still was that part of me that felt, is this really going to work? And then with one family, I decided, right, I'm going to just go for it. From the Best Hopes to the Miracle to the Scaling. And it was just such an amazing transformation from a mum and daughter that had been in an abusive relationship for 7 years, and then 6 weeks down the line, they're kind of coming into session holding hands. And it's such a beautiful sight. Was there a family in particular for you where you felt, you know what, I'm going with this because this is the right thing for me. This is the right fit.
Well, I guess for me, the biggest challenge has been, so I started off in children and families, and I was very privileged to work at 117. So it was almost a unique project, and we were absolutely a solution focused team. I mean, probably one of the first few in the UK. So that was a really good grounding for me. So I'm trying to think where I'm going with this. And I kind of left there, and I kind of came back there, and I've met lots of great people and worked with like Tara and Linda McCann, and so people I'd kind of taught and joined. And then I started to join other teams where, as you're probably aware, you're the kind of lone solution-focused practitioner, and people are saying, well, what do you bring? What do you do? And you try to explain it, and they say, well, is that it? I say, yeah. When I joined CAMS 10 years ago, which, as we know, is very kind of CBT influence, and nothing wrong with CBT. I've got many colleagues who do CBT who are very effective, and I came to this team, and so the question you asked, Joe, the one thing that sticks out for me, so we had a psychotherapist at the time, and this young person was booked in to see the psychotherapist, and just by chance the psychotherapist was off sick, and this young person had come quite a long way with her mum, and they said, well, you know, is anyone available to see this young person? And I said, well, yeah, I'm free, but I've looked at the assessment, this is what's been agreed. What I do, I can't see how that's going to, you know, it's the complete opposite of what's been agreed. But I'm quite happy to sit with this young person and their parent if they want to see me. And the manager said, well, yeah, that would be helpful. So I sat with this young person and their parent. And I've talked a lot about this before, and a lot of people probably disagree with me, but I think there is what is a key element of any kind of therapeutic intervention is connection. And I've thought about this lots over the past years, and I've thought about any kind of successful outcome that I've had. I've got a sense that within, I don't know, 10 minutes or 15 minutes, this person feels comfortable talking with me, and there's a connection there. So that is a key element. So anyway, I met with this young person and their mum, and so their issues were around, well, when we talked about their situation, that they were very kind of confused about gender, and they were self-harming quite specifically. I said, okay, so what would your best hopes of, you know, these conversations be? And the young person said, well, I'm kind of confused about my identity. I kind of think I want to be male, but I'm not sure, you know. But if I had some clarity around that, that would be really helpful. Okay, and also, I get distressed, and I don't really want to cut anymore. I want to find a more healthy way of dealing with, distress. Okay, so we talked about their preferred future, and set the scale and get them a bit of feedback. And the young person, that was really helpful. Can I meet you again? So well, that's fine. Okay, we'll meet again. So we finished the session. So the psychotherapist comes back and said, "Oh, shall I see this person?" I said, "Well, I kind of met, and they seem to want to work with me." He went, "Are you sure?" He said, "Well, what did you do?" I said, "Well, I said this, I said that." Really? I said, yeah. Anyway, so they allowed me to work with this young person, and I probably saw that young person on and off for about 10 months, and it was a good outcome. That they kind of reached their desired kind of state, and obviously there was a lot more work to be done after that in terms of the Tavistock, but it was a very good co-constructive intervention. Now, if someone would say, generally, when we talk about types of clients that we work with, would SF fit with that? And most people would say not, but it's not about, as we know, it's not about the diagnosis or the problem. It's about the outcome that the client wants. So I don't know. I've got lots of examples of that where people have, to the point where I've shown, actual, client clips on training sessions, and people have said, "Well, that's not possible." You can't cure depression in 2 sessions. It's like, well,
yeah.
That's the real tape. That is what the person. So and so it's frustrating, I guess. But I think what we do, as Chris would say, is as effective as anything else. And I'm just very passionate about about what I do, really. And I just love seeing successful outcomes and how people engage with the process. And the language, I mean, that's the thing that really interests me, is just the minutiae of a question or how you formulate a question and the words you use, which I think is so important. Just simple things like when rather than if. It's just a massive thing.
Oh, wow. I'm feeling inspired.
Great.
So when you overcome your depression rather than if. It's such a small, shift, but it's fundamentally, and when clients replicate that, I can't describe how powerful that is. I've got so many examples of that. Again, in CAMS, it's something I took from Guy, actually. That's something I've changed in my practice. So I never used to do this at the end of the first session, but something that Guy taught me was at the end of the first session, when you're giving your summary, or if you've set an experiment or whatever, just to kind of say to the client, okay, so just to be clear, so you've got that. So the very first question I'm going to be asking you next time we meet, is what's been better since we last spoke. So just to think about that, So I've started using that after Guy kind of taught me that. And I remember being at CAMS again, another young person. And at the end of we completed the work that was really helpful and successful. I said, what was the most useful thing from our conversations, to his mum and him? He said, well, it was that when you said to me, what's been, got to think about what's been better. Every Sunday night before we saw him on a Monday, you need to sit down and because Rob's going to ask us that question. And you did something, so let's unpick this. So, I don't know. That was
we love that question too.
Just powerful. I've got so many examples of that. I'm sorry, I'm boring you with my examples.
No.
Another example would be, and this is amazing. One of my lovely clients. So again in CAMS, young person, 14. I met her on the Royal United Hospital ward after she'd taken a significant overdose, and she'd been in CAMS for quite a while. So I did the liaison assessment. And obviously I did the assessment and then started to ask them kind of more SF kind of questions about in terms of help. And she said, I really like, what you're asking me. Could I work with you? And I said, well, I'll check with my boss, but that'd be okay. So my boss agreed. So I started working with this young woman. Quite challenging. I thought the first session was textbook, wrongly. Second session I thought was okay. And then the third session, fourth session, fifth session, sixth session, every time I said, what's been better? Nothing. My life is shit. You know, I want to kill myself. I can't see any future. And this went on for like, God, 2 months, you know. So I'm working with this and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure I'm being helpful. So I say to this young woman, I just need to check, is this helpful? Yeah, it's really helpful. It's really good, you know. Okay, all right. So we continued. She's still painting this picture of dismay, and the school are ringing me saying, I don't know what you're doing, Rob, but she's doing great. She's rejoined the network and she's getting A stars in her sociology. And I'm thinking, fuck's sake, she's not. But I can't challenge that. I can't say I've heard from the school. You know, so I just stick with it to the point where I worked with her for nearly 2 years. You know, on and off, and then she left CAMS because obviously she's an adult. And at the closing session, I said, and I can't say her name, but I just don't understand. You know, but you found this help? Yeah, it's really helpful. Like I've never been able to vocalize it, but I will let you know. So I get 2 weeks later, I get a letter, you know, from this young person, clearly explaining about what was containing, the benefits, and she got me this mug. I've showed this picture in my training. So it's a mug with punk writing, yeah, saying, Rob, what's been better? ?
Fantastic.
That question, even though she couldn't, it was so containing. And what is even better, I mean, she's now a qualified mental health nurse in Bristol. You know.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, how brilliant is that?
Very good.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Rob, actually, do you do anything different with children? You know, when you're working with children, teenagers, do you do it differently, you know?
Yeah, well, I did. So I guess thinking about this today, I mean, I've been in higher education for 5 years now. So I'm still young adults, but mature students. I think back in the day, I was a lot more creative. Young people are just great. They are the masters of change. They change their hairstyles every week, their pop, their music taste, their friendship groups. So they're good at change. So when I was working with young people, all bets were off. I mean, I would use anything, to be honest. So strength cards, walking, So I feel
got the
anything like that. Yeah. I mean, obviously the principles stay the same in the process, but I feel I've lost that. I think somewhat in terms of my practice because. I don't use the flip chart anymore as much as I used to. And when I was trained by Eileen, she was very much about being creative and connecting with anything that was relative to that young person's kind of worldview, really. So, I was a lot better back then, I think. In terms of my creativity, I've got a bit stayed. But I guess, I don't know, at the moment I'm thinking I probably want to work with young people again. Younger people, because that was definitely my passion, and I think I've lost them. And it's a great. Have you ever seen Matthew Seligman?
Yeah.
Oh, been to a couple of his workshops. Absolutely inspirational in terms of sort of pushing the boundaries in that respect. Yeah. So I don't know. I do miss that element in lots of ways because young people are so a lot more. What's the word? Yeah, they're just agents of change, and I think that these students are a bit more. I wouldn't say, but I think I've become a bit more regimented in the way I work, which is a bit of a shame, really. I guess on reflection. Yeah,
and I think a lot of the young people we work with surprise us constantly with their creativity. Just things like, "Wow, how did you come up with that?" And how do you know that's going to be a good idea? And there's young people that we see come with all sorts of labels, but obviously trying to look past that and at the person themselves. What is it that would be useful for you? And they come up with some. Yeah, go on, Rob.
Yeah, and in some ways, a lot of ways institutionalized into thinking that way. So again, going back to my social work days and when I worked at 117, I remember having conversations initially with young people where before I'd even asked a question, would just reel off, okay, I'm 14, I'm manic depressive, this for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But I knew you were going to ask me that, you know. I said, well, actually, no, I'm curious. So what would your best hopes be? And they're like, sorry? So and they know what they're going to be asked. And I think that's what has been quite,
It's sad. It's quite sad, isn't it?
Absolutely. And just trying to connect with that person as the whole person rather than just a problem.
Mm.
And I think that's in working from this perspective, I think, I don't know. It's just even with my students now, it's I'm surprised that so many are taken aback by the questions I ask because they've never been asked that before. So to the point where I had a conversation today. So I had a student who maybe 3 weeks ago was distressed and was doing slightly better. And I think she got in touch with adult services and filled in their 64, deficit-based questionnaire. And they said, well, you're all right. We don't need to see you. I said, well, that's fascinating because for me, if you're doing all right, that's the time, again, you need to have a conversation because how are you doing all right? So what is it you've done over the last 3 weeks, which has got you to this place, And I feel that deconstruction of capability and success is just so, it's never recognised enough, I don't think.
We have a question for you, Rob, or anyone. Do you think young people are at risk of being given labels due to the current pandemic? We can all jump into this one.
Labels. I guess with my students, I see. Yeah, when I'm talking about young people, I'm talking about 18-year-olds. Now, I just, to be honest, my current client group are fucking amazing. To be honest, I just think they've got a first semester of just the most unnormal, unreal, just not the experience they signed up for, and the fact that they've made it through to like January and still on top of it, for some of them still engaged with their studies is phenomenal. So, and again, I would never label, as we know, I would never label anyone. It's not about the diagnosis. It's about the person for me. So you work with a person, you don't work with a diagnosis. I don't. And again, I've had many challenging conversations with my team about that, and I guess that has been my consistent struggle is just working with teams where I don't know. I mean, when I was in CAMS, I thought I was employed because of what I did, and I think in the first instance that was the case. So I joined a really great team of people with different backgrounds and different disciplines, and we all gelled. So we had CBT people, we had myself, we had DBT people, but we all respected each other and were wise enough to know that to have an eclectic range of approaches is the best way to serve a community. But then IACT was brought in, and I was just in dismay. I just thought, well, this is ridiculous. Why are you being so regimented in terms of this is what is needed? And it's just a farce. I mean, improved access to psychological therapies, that's a plural. That's a plural. And we're talking about CBT, which is one approach, and I'm not just listening to CBT because I've got colleagues who do it really well and it is effective. But my argument was, okay, I've been here, 4 years now, and if you look at my clinical outcomes, they're as good. I'll be modest, if not better than yours. And you're saying now I must do something different. Must get a ruler out, and measure little things and go through 64 questions about deficit. Why would you do that? It's just nonsense. And I think, in terms of an evidence base, SF has got, if not a better evidence base than CBT. So it just astounded me. And to be pushed out of a job I really loved, because I could not stay. I can't. I can't do CBT. I've done a 2D course. I understand it, but I don't work in that way. So it seemed like not only to me, but just so sad that so many young people and clients could not then access another way of working. So that I felt really sad about that. So that pushed me out of working with young people that going into HE really.
Yeah, and going back to Dorothea's question reminds me of the conversation I had with a parent yesterday, and I think you were there, Aisha. I don't know if you heard, but I spoke to the mum. She was a bit apprehensive about solution focus. Really, I need long-term support because my daughter's got X, Y, Z, and on top of that, there's mobility. She can't dress herself. And what came to mind to me at that point was the conversation we had with Evan from Brief, where he invited Steve DeShazer over to a conference, and people were asking, can SF work with depression? And he would just say, no. Can it work with it? No. And what he went on to explain was, it works with people.
Yeah.
That came to my head, and I said to the mum, we don't work with labels, we work with people. I know your daughter may have all of these, but I still need to get to know her, because it's different for each individual. And she stopped going on about the labels and said, okay, I'll give it a go. And so we met today. And, you know, sometimes a question comes up in session that's, you don't know where it came from, but it was brilliant. And other times you're just, so we spoke to Stanis today from South Africa, and he told us a story about the two wolves that visit this young person. One's being really negative and one's being really positive, and he keeps having these dreams. And he goes to his grandfather and he says, well, which one will I listen to? Which one will take over? And the story goes, the grandfather says, it's the one that you feed.
Yeah.
And I saw these two children today, and that story came to mind, all the labels. And I told them this story, and I said, what are you getting from that story? And they were really smart. I mean, 8 and I think 10 and 12, and the 10-year-old said, well, it sounds like when you get the devil and angel on your shoulder, and one's telling you good things and one's telling you bad things. And the story about the grandfather saying, if you feed it, he said, it depends on which one you believe. And so it was just such a magical start to a conversation, rather than saying to an 8 and a 12-year-old, so right, so what are your best hopes from our meeting?
Yeah.
So sometimes those nuggets just seem to fall into place. I don't know what it is. Do you know what I mean? I ask the best hopes questions so many different ways to different people. It just feels right at the time.
And no response is the same, and that's why I don't get bored. Because I've been doing this 24 years now, and I still so. I mean, like today, I've had a great day. I mean, I've had a difficult day, just not been easy, but I've been so privileged to be part of so many wonderful conversations. You know, and I think the key thing for me, what I learned from so many people, but from Chris Ison, when I first met Chris. It was I don't know. It was I'd done the training with Eileen, and it was fantastic, and I was infused, and she was very different to Chris. So I go to Brief. They were at Charlotte Mews then. I'm not knowing what to expect. So I go to that first day, and Chris comes in, and just Chris. He said, "I just want to show you my best piece of work ever. Like, you know, this is what solution focus is about." So we're all like, "Great, this is going to be good." We showed the tape. And then this young guy there, and he sat there with his social worker like this, and Chris is talking to him, and eventually he says, "Okay, so you know, what are your best hopes of this then?" And this young person just goes, "Oh, sleep." He said, "I'm that good. I can hypnotize people." And I'm like, what is this? But anyway, it kind of goes on, and that's great. But the best, I mean, the thing I got from Chris, I've had the privilege to spend a lot of time with him, and I had some tutorage. He just said, you know, in your most, you know, questioning moments, just trust the process. Trust the process. That if you have that in your head, just trust the process. And that's what I've taken from it. And that's what that's enabling me to do. It's just to work on things that perhaps you don't get from the books, or you don't get from the training courses. So I don't know, I'm quite an active guy. And when I first started doing SF, if a client didn't answer my question within 3 seconds, I'll be bang, another question. Okay, bang, another question. Okay, bang, another question. Whereas what I've developed over the last 24 is just to be okay with silence. You know, put that question out there, and then I'll grab my wrist and think, no, you know, and then you get the indication from the client that they're thinking about the question. I mean, I've got a great training tape where, which I share, where this young person's not been in school for, I don't know, eight months or whatever, I don't know. So we talk about, you know, the situation, and then say, okay, so what would your best be? And it's about 15 seconds, you know, before he says, I don't know. You know, now if I'd been working with that young person 6 years prior, I'd probably just interject it after 2 seconds. But the fact that he went, you know, demonstrates to me he was thinking about the question. He had time. So when someone says, I don't know, it's either, hold on, I need to think about that. You know, that's a big question. Or perhaps you need to kind of frame the question in the way that I. So silence is hard, and that's something I've really.
I'm with you, Rob. I was far more impatient, and I've broken a record. For me, I waited 6 minutes for someone to say, I don't know. And it was on Zoom, so you can actually time it. 6 minutes for them to say, I don't know, and a further 3 minutes to then clarify that actually they do know.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed. Forget the client. I was impressed with myself.
But it's things like that I guess that people aren't. It's just giving that space and time, because, like I say to my clients, I mean, the questions sound very simple, but they're really, really hard to answer. And that's massive. So that takes some thought. So, you know, and it's I don't know. So Chris saying that to be trusted the process, it's almost like, I don't know. I did a plenary at Brief, and I kind of compared it to kind of use the Force loop, that kind of sort of Jedi kind of reminded me. Yeah.
Rachel, go for it.
I was thinking, you know, has your practice changed during lockdown, pandemic era?
Completely. Oh God. So yeah. Wow. So going back to when was it? I don't know. March.
1980.
I can't remember that. Yeah. March. So we're there told then that at that point we can't do face to face, and it's like, you're going to have to do this. And I'm like, well, I'm not trained to do this. You know, I've never done this before, but I guess we have to adapt. So I was a bit cynical, because I thought, well, this is never going to work. I need to kind of see a real person. And so I was a bit, and my team were obviously anxious, because we've never kind of done this before. And you think, you know, are you going to pick up the body language? But we started. And I guess the 2 pluses, which is amazing from my client group students. So our DNA rate, so not attending, has dropped by 70%.
Wow.
70%. So we've had so little DNAs. So students are quite happy just to get out of their pajamas, click on there, you know, not have to get on the bus and come and see it. I mean, you could look at that in 2 ways, but they engage better in terms of that. And what this has allowed us to do, so we have lots of students on what we call Erasmus. Do you know what that is? Erasmus?
Yeah, is it the European Fund? Is it
they've got placements all over the world, so Austria or Japan or Australia, Portugal. Over the course of the last, I would say, 10 months, however long it's been. So I've worked with people in Portugal, Japan, Austria, Switzerland, Poland, who would never have been able to access our service if it was just a normal generic way of working, because they wouldn't be here. They'd be. So this has opened up. I mean, that's not ideal, but I think there are benefits to this. So I think moving forward, even when we come out of lockdown, it will be something that we will add to our repertoire in terms of online sessions. It's been difficult, you know, like I say, when you're sat with someone who's absolutely distressed and, you know, in the pits of despair, and you're just talking through a screen. But, you know, your professionalism kicks in, and, you know, it's just a different way of working, really.
And it's been wonderful for us, because obviously, you know, we don't live near each other, and Rachel doesn't, and we've met Rachel quite a few times via Zoom or on this platform, and we've interviewed people from across the world, one of them being Jeff Chang, who I know that you know.
I'll tell you that, Jeff.
Anything you want to tell us about Jeff Chang, Rob?
Yeah, so Jeff, I used to be on the SF World discussion group, which I kind of dipped in and out of. So I kind of vaguely knew Jeff from there. And then, so there's a conference in Amsterdam, a very famous conference. So as SF people, we work hard, but we party hard as well. That's what we kind of do. And for some reason, we all ended up at this it was a boutique hotel, which had lots of bizarre rooms, like condom rooms and all this kind of stuff. And at that point, two of my friends from Bath wanted to come to Amsterdam, but they're not therapists. They're just good friends of mine. And one of them is a Canadian, called Nancy. She's very kind of life of the party. So they come to Amsterdam and they meet us, and the sort of conference evening meal is going to happen on the Saturday. And my friend said, "Oh, can we come?" I said, "Well, okay. I hope Arne doesn't listen to this because." I said, "Well, yeah, but we have to sneak you in, I said, "Okay. So what do we talk about? Just say solution focused therapist or practitioner from." So John was from London and Nancy's from Canada, So we kind of sneak them in. We're kind of mingling around, and then we kind of bump into Jeff. And I said, "Oh, you Jeff?" He said, "Yeah." And then my friend Nancy comes over. He said, "Who are you?" So Nancy Cameron, Canada, solution-focused therapist. He goes, "Well, I'm Jeff Chang. I'm from Canada. I've never heard of you. Where are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm based in." Where's Jeff from? I can't remember now. I can't remember. Anyway, so she says she's based from the same place as Jeff is based. And he said, "I've been doing this for like 20 years. I've never heard of Nancy Cameron in my life." So I got rumbled basically that my friend was just not a therapist and she's from Canada. So that's how I first met Jeff. And then after that, I met him at lots of conferences to the point where we were in Poland and I support Everton for my sins. And at the time, he was sponsored by Tang Beer, so I gave Jeff an honorary Tang Beer T-shirt, and he's worn it ever since. So, but moving forward, I think it's in that the academics, they're the people we need to get involved in terms of pushing our model forward in terms of recognizing that it is a credible approach, really.
Yeah. And I think this has come up quite a few times in the chats that we've had, Rob. And it's is it because the SF approach sees the client as the expert that doesn't push it forward? Is it the lack of research? Is it that kind of click of, this is the model that we use and we're going to go with it? What's holding us back?
I can't believe it's the lack of research because I've said before, I think that extensive evaluation of this would bear us out. So I don't know. I don't know. It's just, I just get frustrated. I mean, I guess over the past 24, I've seen my role, I guess, in terms of trying to promote SF and encourage people to get involved. And I've been very privileged in that. So when I used to kind of teach up at Bath University, I know people who came to that initial workshop, like Tara, Linda McCann, Alistair Wakely, lots of people I've since worked with who were infused by that. So, I mean, for me, that's quite pleasing to see that I did a very basic lecture that people sort of grasped with and went on to do great things. So, and that's what I see my role is trying to promote that. But you just come across so many barriers. I don't know, just frustrating thinking. And there's people who are in positions of influence who will not accept what we do. I guess going back to my CAMS experience. So my clinical lead at the time was a great guy. He's called Paul Stallard. I don't know if you've heard of Paul Stallard. He's very sort of prolific in the CBT world, but he's the clinical lead of Oxford Health. So you're not going to convince Paul Stallard that has got a place. To the point when I've challenged him, it's been quite difficult. So, I mean, interesting conversation I had with him and the team going back many years. So we used to do. So my team I was in was called the Oscar team. So we were like a community team. So we used to support the clinical psychologists in some of their work. So the CBT people talk about exposure. That's what they graded exposure. That's their thing. So I remember Paul coming to our team meeting one day. So I've been working with this young person It's going okay. So we're just getting to the graded exposure stage. We're going to try and get him out of the house, to the bus stop. That's what we're going to be working on. So I need one of you guys to kind of, can you work with the family supporting him to do this graded exposure out of the house to the bus stop? So I'm listening like this. I'm thinking, I'm not going there. But a couple of my colleagues who love Paul were going, yeah, well, I'll do it, Paul. I'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it. So they say, okay, so when is this going to start next week? Paul said, no. It's going to be in about sort of 2 or 3 weeks' time. So if you can get in touch with the family, you can arrange the appointments, house to the bus stop, Okay, so I said, okay, so 2 or 3 weeks' time. So how come, how come we can't start, like tomorrow? He said, well, they're going to Morocco for 2 weeks. I said, sorry? They're going to Morocco for 2 weeks. Oh, what? Really? Yeah. I said, well, wouldn't it be more interesting to talk about how they managed to get him out of the house to Morocco on a plane 2 weeks, rather than like 2 streets down to the bus stop? Surely that's a more interesting conversation, really. Totally blanked, before I disrespected it. So I don't know. That's quite funny. But I just think it's how people view things, and I think you have to have people in positions of, and that's why I've been quite lucky. I mean, I guess that's why I went to BASPAR, because as much as I don't see myself as a team leader or a manager, because I hate that. I love working with people. It's been one place where I've been able to influence what we do. Not that I like it. I just like working with people. So I've had to take a hit on that respect. But it's so hard. I mean, and going back to when I first started my SF journey, 117 was brilliant. I mean, it sounds like it's a team very similar to yours, Joe and Aisha, in terms of we were a complete, unique new team. And everyone was working from did it differently, of course, but the principles were pretty much the same. So I miss that, really. And it's quite lonely being an SF practitioner. I don't know.
Yeah. No, interesting. When we interviewed Paul Z. Jackson, it's Paul Jackson, but there was just a comment that he made, and it wasn't really followed up at the time, but he kind of said, as practitioners, we don't give ourselves enough credit for being experts as well. In the sense that it's, it seems on the surface an easy approach. It's simple, but it's not easy, is what Steve DeShazer would say. And it is really difficult in the middle of a session to get stuck and think, Christ, where do I go here? So there is a level of expertise there that maybe as practitioners, I don't know if we.
I think most of us are really rubbish at that, though.
Yeah.
No way. Oh, I missed that.
Well, I think I think most SF practitioners are quite rubbish about saying, we are the experts of SF. It just doesn't come naturally, or we.
Yeah, but I guess. I mean, like I say, I would say I'm quite experienced, and so 24 years, I still struggle. I mean, for a few months ago, given the pandemic, to kind of raise your game to think, God, what can I offer today? And second sessions, third sessions, I really had to push myself. But the way I learn, and I'm a visual learner, and I think that's what I like about SF, is over the years. I mean, of course, I know a bit about the theoretical kind of background, but I learn by watching. And I've had so many privileged opportunities to watch some of the great people work. It's just, and that's where I kind of learn and think about, okay, how does that help what I do?
Yeah, I don't think Joe and I have ever been the same since watching Rachel at Bath. It was because I do kind of direct people, go onto FBS Chat and watch Rachel and learn. Just go on there, because there's so many different ways of kind of promoting SF, and there's so many varieties, and each client is different, so our practice is slightly different.
Oh, for sure. But as long as you keep those principles in your mind, okay, what is it the client wants?
Yeah.
What difference does that make?
Yeah.
And then what are they already doing, which I got from Chris and got from Eileen. That's always how you go about that process.
Principles, yeah.
And like you say, it's having that richness of difference and learning from different people. And that's what I've enjoyed about the conferences is both times we've tried to create a program of a complete, difference where hopefully people can take on that. And they've been great, to be honest. I mean, hard work, but you get to meet people like Rachel. I think it came last time. Kidge. So many people. Fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, go on, Rachel. Rachel has given to us.
Oh, Rachel.
She's awesome.
Thanks, Dorothea.
I like that.
Is that your pseudonym?
Dorothy is amazing. She's
And then we've got fabulous Guy. Make sure you ask Rob to tell you his bollocks story once he's in his stride.
Bollocks? I'm trying to remember that. There's so many stories. Bollocks.
Guy, you're going to have to kind of explain what that means.
Bollocks story. Embarrassing stories. I mean, that's the thing about good conferences. You learn a lot, but you just have some great fun. So my most embarrassing story I could tell you. So I was very fortunate. Again, I don't think it was the same Amsterdam conference I met Jeff, but I went with Chris and Harvey, and I got invited to have sort of dinner with Intu Kimberg and all these kind of great people. And at that point, I was very new, so very nervous. So I'm just sitting there, listening to these great conversations, thinking, academically, what could I add to this? And I'm quite drunk at that point because I'm nervous, And they turned to me and said, do you want to ask Intu something, Rob? And I'm like, okay, Intu, English Premier League tomorrow. I'm going to give you some fixtures. I want you to predict the scores. Sunderland, Brighton.
How did she respond to that? I think Rachel and I
want to know what she said. Yeah.
Sunderland 2, Brighton 1. I don't know. She was very, very humorous in the response, but that was the level of my anxiety and nervousness. So it was very embarrassing. But no, she was great. Very funny.
Yeah.
The bollocks story. I think. Oh God. Bollocks. Oh yeah. I think it was to do with. I think I did a workshop in. I did do a workshop in Amsterdam, and again. So this was a workshop on creative work with children, and I showed a clip of a young person with a scale, and I said, okay, so 10 would be the hope, and I don't know what his hope was, but it was some words, I don't know, about outcome. And I said, well, what would 0 be for you? And he said, total bollocks. He wrote it out. And the Dutch people in the audience went, what is this bollocks that he's talking about? Bollocks? What does he mean by bollocks? Is that an English phrase? Yeah, I remember it now. Yeah, that was back in 2009, I think. So that was quite funny. What is this bollocks he is talking about? Is that
right, Rachel? Do you want to ask your last question, and then Joe can ask his last question?
It's going to sound really dull after that, but. Oh gosh, what can we do? I suppose some of the challenges I'm seeing at the moment, I've got some teenagers on the books who are in isolation because they've tested positive, and what are your best hopes from today? And it's like, well, that I can go back to bed. What are we doing? How can we really bring our game kind of, I don't know what the analogy is.
I mean, I think for me, I've got students in the same situation. So I always make reference to, given the conditions that we're unfortunately under and the limitations of that, what would your best hopes of this conversation be? So it's actually recognising that there are limitations. And there's a great, I don't know if you've seen Evan's video about useful conversations. Some great questions there. I don't know if you've seen that. So it's an acceptance that we are in the situation, and given that we are, There's nothing we can control about that. I mean, your best sense of the conversation be, and I totally accept that, Rachel. So, I mean, my last sort of, I don't know, however weeks it's exhausting, and we should never neglect the impact it has on us as practitioners. So, I mean, not every day. I mean, some days I go in and I'm kind of infused and I'm coping with this okay to the best of my ability. But there are days when I'm struggling. I'm thinking, oh, shit, you know, I've got my daughter at home, my wife's working at home. How can I honestly go in? And not that it's my responsibility to lift someone, but be at the top of my game. But I guess that's what we have to do, and it's okay. You know, I think it's recognising and accepting that it is difficult and acknowledging that with students or clients and validating that. But then there still can be some use of a helpful conversation, as long as people acknowledge that there are certain things that we can't change, but there are things that we can influence and control. And that's what I think about. I mean, I did not say this, but I don't really like the word solution focused. I like the word possibility more. You know, that's but it's what it is. I mean, it's Steve Singh, and that's what we are. That's what we're kind of labelled with. But it's just about, for me, it's about creating senses of possibility and what could be. I mean, that's the way I look at things, really. And it's difficult.
You know, that trust in the process thing as well. You know, I saw a client yesterday, and when I saw her last week, I literally saw the top of her head, you know, between the hoodie and the duvet, you know. And yesterday she'd been getting up at normal time, chatting with her friends, you know, and last week I was thinking, well, I don't know, you know.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is, again, which we've not talked about, it's a lot of the questions that we ask or the process of the work happens outside of that 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So what might seem as a bit of a damp squid or a dull session, it's not got anywhere, you know. A lot of my clients say to me, well, I didn't really understand what we were talking about. However, when I got to think about what we talked about, I did start to think, well, what would I notice? Or, you know, that's the power of that, really, I think, which is really, really important to recognise as well.
Yeah.
And I never lose sight of that, you know, at all. And I believe that's the key, really.
I think it's really interesting, because sometimes me and Aisha will sit and think, that session was awful. I don't think it could have gone any worse than what it did. And yet the next week they come back and you think, where the hell did that come from?
Coming back to that point, you should never underestimate the impact that one thing should have. Not related solution focused story. So when I was in residential social work before 117, I worked with this really hardened kind of Glaswegian young man who'd been in and out of prison for years and years, and I was his key worker, whatever that meant. Didn't do a lot, but we got on quite well. And then he left, and things progressed. I don't know where he went. And then this is a true story. 15, 20 years later, I was working as a social worker in the duty team. The admin person came up to me, Kerry, and said, "Oh, Jock says hello." You know, I said, "Jock." Oh yeah, John Taylor. You know John Taylor? Said, yeah. He used to be in your children's home, like, you know. I said, what's he doing now? He said, well, he runs a successful travel business up in Scotland, you know. That's really. He said, you were the most helpful person he's ever met in his life, you know.
Wow.
And I said, what? What do you mean? He said, I didn't do anything, you know. He said, no. He said, you were the first person that talked to him like a human being.
Yeah.
You know, and I would never have known that just that little interaction. I'm not taking, you know, I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just, you never know what it is you do that makes such an impact. I think we should never lose sight of that.
I think that's so important.
Yeah. And like you say,
the sessions that we think perhaps are not the greatest seem to deliver more sometimes, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
What we get often from the families is that I suddenly got some clarity.
Yeah.
I kind of knew in my heart what needed to change and what I wanted to change, but I never really discussed it in enough depth to actually be able to see that this is maybe an actual possibility.
Well, it's giving them the space to look for their existing resources.
Yeah.
Where did I get that from, Rachel?
Where did you nick that from?
Excellent work.
And going back to Rachel's question earlier about lockdown, I mean, we've, in terms of what's been positive, the amount of practitioners we've seen from across the world, which has been fantastic. And these conversations, I love them, absolutely love these conversations. But a lot of the clients that we work with, there's a lot of stigma and shame. And we've given them the option, if you can just hear us, you can turn your camera off. You don't actually have to have it on. And if your child doesn't want to be involved, maybe if they sit in the room but can just hear the conversation, what these remote meetings have done is they've made them a lot more focused, but also given clients the option of not having to fight to get their child to an office, not even having to fight to get their child to take part in the session. No. But they can turn their camera off. We've got a client called Galaxy S9. We still don't really know her name, and one called Sparkles.
Yeah, love Sparkles.
Yeah, but it gave them this kind of format, gave them that opportunity to lose that shame, lose that stigma, and be open and honest behind that. So that's what struck me the other day when we started to do the group work, is that this way of working, like you said, Rob, is something that we will continue even when lockdown's over.
Well, I personally, I hate it. I love working with a real, and I can't believe I've not spoken to a real client in a room for nearly a year. It just seems
wow.
However, it's not about me. It's about the clients, and I would say a lot of my students much prefer this way, and it opens up, like you're saying, Joe, possibilities which would never have been there before. So a lot of my students choose not to have the camera on. They choose to have it entirely up to them. So you can't get more client focused than that, to be honest.
Oh.
Well, we've come to the end already. Wow. That was very quick. It's been an absolute pleasure. Any last words from any of you before we say au revoir?
Like I said, because I'm in HE now and I'm kind of pretty much a bit out of the loop of the SF community. I'm hoping to go to a lot more conferences over the next few years, but just the work you're doing in promoting the approach is amazing, really. And thanks for inviting me to talk. I'm not sure I offered much, but
no, you're brilliant.
It's been a pleasure every time we do these talks, and I've said this to people before. When we close down, you'll hear me and Aish go, "Oh," because we were so you will definitely be getting
Yeah.
because
it's nice to meet Rachel, because we met briefly. Obviously, Rachel, I was running around trying to sort out various, people complain about meals and workshop projects not working, but it was a privilege to invite you to speak, and you got some great feedback, and I hope you enjoyed the experience, really, and perhaps we can link up again. But I don't know. I love SF. I'm just passionate about people. That's me.
Thank you. Well, and you got an R. You got lots of R's too, Rachel. I don't want you to feel like
I did.
What
Love
SF gave me is a best friend in Guy, so that was a bonus. I could tell you. And he did the best only ever, I think, SF best man's wedding speech. So there you go.
You know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have an FBS chat with Rob and Guy.
Definitely.
And just let them loose and see what happens.
Yeah.
Sit back.
We'll get a lot of B's and F's and everything else, and that's okay.
Sorry, I didn't even check. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine, because on YouTube it's for adult only. We don't let kids in, and if parents choose to let their kids watch it, that's their own prerogative. But as far as we're concerned, this is for adult ears and eyes only, so you're okay.
Really enjoyed the experience. Thanks for inviting me. I feel very privileged to be asked to kind of talk to you guys. So.
Well, if you can hang on here, Rachel and Rob, so we can say a goodbye to you personally. But next week we have Rob, Pout, and Marika, the famous trio, joining us next week, Wednesday and I'm looking at my calendar, 5 p.m., which I think is 6 p.m. their time. But yeah, that's next Wednesday. So we'll see you guys then. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.